All right, everybody, welcome to the latest Albert's List webinar. We are debuting a new tool today that I was lucky enough to find on the internet called Be Live. And so today we are doing this webinar, and it is called Hacking the Internship with Zach Schleien. So who is Zach? Zach is a graduate of Syracuse University with a bachelor's degree in history and a minor in marketing, as well as a graduate degree in their IT, a management, Master's of Science in Information Management from the School of Information Studies at Syracuse University, also obtained in December 2015. And so he's currently a IT leadership in the IT leadership development program over at Johnson & Johnson, which you know for their many products that they put in the home and for families and whatnot. And he is also a lot of other different things, including the founder of Lift Protein Muffins, which is a really cool startup that I've been following over the last couple of months that I think, if I'm correct, and he can correct me on this, takes advantage of, or not rather takes advantage of, but rather offers a gluten-free alternative to protein muffins, especially for those who work out. And I think he's had a couple of celebrities also endorse this product. And he's here today with us on this webinar because he just wrote a book called Hacking the Internship Process, which is both a regular, I think, book that you can read and flip pages for, as well as on Kindle. And there's a workbook series that helps you work through it. And so Hacking the Internship Process, this book, is designed to maximize your internship application results. Because I know as students, we have so many applications that we send out every day for internships, and not a lot of us seem to find a lot of that success, but we want to increase that success. And so the authors of this book, who are Bill Hobbs, who is on the hiring side of internships, and Zach, who is one who works in the internship area, provide a smart and innovative methodology that leads readers through every aspect of winning their dream internship. And so the book optimizes reader efficiency by combining the most modern technological tools with hacks proven to get results. And so by following the simple steps in their book to build a powerful referral network, reach out to future bosses, ace interviews, and much more, this book is the perfect guide to really get any student on the path to obtaining an internship that they've always wanted, and prepare for a successful career in the field of your dreams. And so I know that's a mouthful, and for those of you who are also just joining, if you have any questions, I'll be following along, hopefully here in the live comments area. And if you have anything else that you'd like to add in terms of comments or whichever, let me know. So with that said, welcome to the show, Zach.
Well, thank you, Albert, for having me on and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for coming. You know, I know I've known you for quite a while here, and I followed you on Facebook, and I know you do a lot of amazing work, and I hope that I gave you the credit and the amazingness that you deserve on that entire introduction there. If there's anything I missed, please let me know.
No, I think the intention of today is just to share a little bit about that internship process. My co-author, Bill Hobbs, and I wrote this book, Hacking the Internship Process. It was released today, so first time published. Very excited. Thank you.
Having been a publisher of books twice myself on Amazon, I can always tell you that launch day is really hectic, especially when you're trying to get up on the Kindle rankings.
Yeah. So it's available on Kindle. We're doing a promo for the next few days for $2.99, and it's a paperback as well.
Nice. So if you wanted to read it like a textbook, like the other heavy textbooks you're lugging around school, you can get those too, right?
Exactly. If you're more wanting to write in with some pen or write on the paper, you can always go to paperback.
Perfect. And for those of you who are watching this webinar, you'll notice that in the link below, you're going to see that the link to the Amazon book is there. And so check that out, have a look, and you can make sure that everything looks right. So I'm just scrolling into my own Facebook profile here so I can see how many people are watching and if any questions are happening. So for this webinar, Zach, I would like to actually think about how the internship process works from end to end, because I know there's a lot of students in my group who are wondering on a monthly, daily, hourly basis about how their career is going to start, because there's so much difficulty, I think, and I think you and I both can relate to this, in that what you learn in the classroom does not necessarily translate into the working world. And having probably now joined the working world, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think a lot of it comes from primarily the relationships you build. And
Mm,
that's the wonderful thing about Albert's List, which
hmm
was mentioned in the book. It was a really awesome network for me,
hmm
just to kind of learn about what other people in the field are doing and meet and connect with other people that have similar interests.
Great, great. Yeah, and so, I mean, I know that for a lot of people who just start out at the beginning of this whole entire internship search, many of these people are probably still in school, and so they're at that very start where
Hmm.
they've selected a major, so yeah, I think they have an idea of what they want to do, and so. I like to actually start with I think the beginning of the internship search here, and we'll just put that on the broadcast and talk about that a little bit. And so people have selected their major, they've thought about what they wanted to do, and so what are the thought processes in even right here before you even begin the internship hunt?
Yeah, I mean, selecting your major, I think, can
Hmm
be challenging for many people. I went into it undecided, which I
hmm
know many other students uh, do the same.
Right.
And originally, I was between political science or history. I wanted to
hmm
potentially go to law school, so I saw that as a route. And then I wanted to also choose marketing as my minor in Whitman at Syracuse, so I could
hmm
have some take some business classes as well. So I think in terms of major, that's often you choose a major um, that you have an interest in, or the professors that are teaching at the university. I don't think a major is end all be all in terms of
hmm
your career decision, but I think it's a good starting point in an area of an interest that you have.
Awesome. And so for people who are thinking that maybe their major doesn't necessarily connect to their job search or
Yeah.
internship rather and their career. So
Yeah.
maybe these are the people who are like maybe a gender studies major, which you heard a
Mhm.
lot of in the news, or if you're a physical sciences person or physical
Yeah.
fitness person, how do you make that connection back that you do have a chance and you do have a fighting shot in getting that internship
Yeah.
in the next step?
Well, I think regardless of the major you are in, I think it's very important to do work outside of the classroom,
Hmm
or if you're in the classroom, potentially helping with a professor with research or any publications that they have. That's a great way of getting noticed outside of just classrooms because, as you know, and Bill could speak about this as well, when an employer sees resumes, they're very similar. So they want to see how you can stand out. So if you do research with a professor, or maybe you run a blog on the side, those are just different ways of standing out from the crowd.
Yeah, and I learned this lesson really way late in my own career search because I didn't realize that you had to do way more than what was
Yeah.
expected. And while it hasn't hurt me necessarily 7 years later, getting that late start is always
Hmm.
a lot harder. And
Yeah.
so I encourage every single student to go and seek out those resources because they're just so important, and you just need to know about that. And so even though at the beginning of this internship process, let's talk about finding what you want in an internship and I guess corresponding that to your major
Yeah.
and the work that you want to do. So, what do you do to sit down between, football games and basketball games and Friday
Yeah.
night parties and going out on dates and having all that fun to figure out what it is that you want to do at your
Yeah.
internship?
I think actually that's kind of almost the most fun part because it's
Yeah.
really
Okay.
up to you. You have so many opportunities, and that's the beauty.
Right.
You look at it that way. You don't have to look at it as, oh, I need to work at a bank. I need to work at an agency. I think if you have that focus, that's great.
hmm
I actually didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, especially I'm talking about following my master's program, or during my master's program, looking for an internship. So I went through the process twice in undergrad and then also for my master's program. And a lot of it is just being able to do a lot of research. So what I would do, I remember I would go on the different job websites and type in digital marketing and see
Right.
every type of internship that was available. And then I looked at that and I said, is this an area that I'd be interested in?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a need? So maybe you have a interest and you're like, well, the supply is pretty low, so the possibility of me working there is not in my favor, which is totally fine to play the odds. So like right now,
Because
computer
everybody,
science is hot.
gets to hear, right, that, oh yeah, you work at Facebook for a summer and you're going to make
Exactly.
20K and that'll pay for, half a semester of
Yeah.
your books and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Okay.
that's the beginning, is just doing that research.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important as a student to do that
Mm-hmm.
research. So when you meet people during the networking process, which comes a little later on, which we could get to, you're well versed in the area that interests you or
Mm-hmm.
multiple areas that interest you. So it shows that you've done the work.
Mm-hmm. And that probably also involves taking classes that maybe aren't in your school or outside your
Mhm.
major, or
Yeah,
even like volunteering, right?
that's
Even
a
though we know that credit unit hours are really expensive.
yeah. That's a definite possibility. And again, if you can't afford or don't want to pay for extra classes, take a class on Udemy or Coursera. They're
And those can be free
oftentimes
too.
free. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
even YouTube. So you can always take courses outside of the traditional coursework
Mm-hmm.
that are very affordable, if not free.
Perfect. Very nice. Very nice.
But there
So I just
is,
want to,
I guess, one thing to say though,
yeah.
none of this comes easy. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. Maybe you're going to have to skip the Duke game. I know
Which
people don't want to
Rohan's
hear
talking about here, the
that.
Syracuse
So
versus Duke in a couple of
yeah,
days here.
yeah. So I think you have to understand that if you want to exceed,
Hmm.
you're not going to always just be able to coast. Um,
Right.
and it's not saying don't have a social life. I think that's part of college as well. But
Yeah.
maybe you don't go out every day of the week. So that's
I mean,
something
I
to
kind
consider.
of went through this whole process thinking for a while that, maybe you should join like a frat or a sorority or one of these academic fraternities that is going to give you like the golden ticket into finding that internship. And I know we're going a little bit off of the course of what we were
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about, but what do you think about those kinds of routes for finding internships and
So
whether, pledging
yeah,
for a fraternity or going to an academic
yeah.
fraternity is the route to go to?
Yeah, so I'm only going to speak about Syracuse, since that's where
Hmm.
I went. So it may not necessarily be
Sure.
identical for every university, but I think
Hmm.
if you have the mindset that I will join a fraternity or an organization because
Hmm.
then I will be able to get an awesome internship, I don't think
Hmm.
that's the best mindset, because
Okay.
then you're setting your expectations really high.
That's
And
how it
if
was
it,
sold to me in college, so I'm
yeah.
wondering if that was the actual
Yes,
way of doing
I think at least in my perspective, if you rely on people too much, you may get disappointed.
it.
Um,
Right.
and I think it's important to build real
Hmm.
relationships, whether that's in a fraternity or a student organization. And those internship opportunities can come anywhere in your life. I mean, it could literally be at a coffee
Hmm.
shop. You sit
Yep.
down next to someone, you spark up a conversation. They ask you what you do. You say you're a student, and then you share your interest, and you can land in an internship. So I think it's really about putting yourself out there and
Hmm.
not necessarily having to rely on people that they will get you the internship. I mean, it's important to take responsibility and
Hmm.
important to understand what resources are available to you.
Hmm. Very cool. Very cool. So for those of us just joining, I know we now have 10 people on this webinar who are watching. I just wanted to remind you that this is Zach Schleien here. He is the author of Hacking the Internship Process, and he's here today. And if you have any questions, please leave them below. And we actually have one question from Rohan. Would you like to take it now?
Sure.
Okay, so he says, how much stuff did you do research for the book for bachelor's versus master's versus doctorate students? Some of these students where audiences might come from diverse backgrounds and outside of the country, where job search was something, a very was something was a very different process.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular where your book covers that?
Yeah, I didn't want to get into. So I guess the first question is, so I'm going to just talk about bachelor's and master's since that's what I
Sure.
went through. I think there are many differences since as a master's student, you have more experience. However, the process is very similar that I experienced in undergrad and then in master's. To get to your second question, in terms of the research, I did speak to a lot of students that are international students. I did not want to cover the specifics of visa because I believe that is better covered by someone who's a expert for international students. I wanted to really cover whether you're an international student that may have the challenges of networking or finding an internship. So it's more, I wanted to especially, so one group would be international students to help them get through that process, to have a much better understanding and simplify it for them.
Great. And I want to emphasize, I think that in this group, we do have some visa and one of those like international student resources. Lee Lin is the career coach that I oftentimes refer to because she knows the most about this. So if you're looking to talk to her, I'll include that later on down at the bottom of the thread. So I want to move into our next section now. I know that in the last one where we were talking about fraternities, we were talking about relationship building, which I think is actually the perfect segue into our next section, which is, one of my favorite topics, which is networking. And so we're going to talk internship networking for this next part, because I think that's a really important thing. I know that for me, when I was in college, I did a lot of campus networking. I didn't really get off campus and start networking until way, way later. And so talk a little bit about, on the very high level, about how networking fits into finding an internship and what students can do to get the most out of campus networking and everything that's related to that.
Yeah, so this is well covered in my book as well. And just to mention some of your readers, the book is available on Kindle, came out today. We're doing a $2.99 promo for the next 3 days.
But and the link is in the comment section, so they can buy it right now if they want to.
Yeah. So it's well covered in the book, but I will go into detail in terms of the networking process, especially the early phases. So there are certain tools you can use. So again, it depends. Is your university in a city or is it rural? So like in Syracuse, if you wanted to network, you could, it's more challenging. I mean, that's the reality. So
you're in the middle of a Rust Belt town, and
yeah, exactly.
Buffalo is 2 hours one way, and New York is 5 hours the other way.
Yeah, exactly. And there are meetups in Syracuse. I'm not saying that, but if you want to go to a marquee meetup with 100 people, chances are that you have a much better opportunity to find that, let's say, in New York City. So again, it depends. Do you have a car? Are you willing to leave your campus to drive to a major city for a weekend, and you could stay maybe with a friend and you could grab coffee with different people over the course of a weekend? Or maybe if you can't do that, you could have a phone call. So you could do that wherever you are. You could have a conference call. So let's say, so I'll give you an example. Let's say you're into digital marketing and you've identified that as one of the areas that you would look to intern in. So in the book, we go over reverse engineering email addresses. So I use a tool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's very cool tool. It's actually like one of my favorite hacks. You use a tool and you're able to actually decipher their email address, their real name. And
are you willing to give that tool away, or do they got to look in your book for that?
It's reportive. It's reportive. So it's a free tool and it plug in on Gmail, made by LinkedIn.
Okay. And
there's different combinations. So let's say you're looking to get an internship. Let's say it's Etsy, and you want to do digital marketing for Etsy. So on LinkedIn, LinkedIn, we also go into this in the book. LinkedIn will often give 1 month free. So you get that 1 month, and then you just want to try to collect as many email addresses as possible. So you may
So you
still
really
have
should
to,
know what you want by this time,
yes,
because you don't want to
and
be just
exactly,
waiting for this. Yeah.
and that's how we've laid it out in the book. Where the first part is understanding areas, and it could be more than one that you're interested in, and the second part would be reaching out to people. And we could actually, the hack is called "Can I see myself?" It's like, can I see myself in that role in 5 years? So it's
okay.
So I think it's really important, and that's another way of building relationships. And they're not transactional. It's not, can I have an internship? It's more, what do you do? With the question in the back of your mind is, can I see myself in their shoes? And I think that's a really important mindset. And it doesn't come off as, I need an internship. Because when you have that, when you send that message, people can get that and are kind of back off, and they say, I don't know about that. So I think the goal
So, I mean, is it wrong to just straight up like ask for like an opportunity or anything like that?
No, I
Because
think, I think that's a great question.
I think for new grads, right? Like, I know that for the experienced professionals like you and me, the informational interview comes with the caveat that we're exchanging value for value.
Yep.
But for the new grad or for the student who's still very early in their college career, that
Yep.
value for value thing isn't quite there. So what
Yeah.
kind of takes its place?
Yeah, I think, again, it depends where you are in the process. So right now I'm discussing more on the early side of the process. Eventually it gets to the point where you've made the connections through a variety of hacks that you've used, and you built up a strong base. And now you're reaching out and saying, hi, Mike. And I actually, in the book, I included all of our emails that I used. So I could, as a student, you can take a look at the emails and you can use it for your own. So I wanted to really make it efficient for students. You still have to put in the work, but if you want a template, you can use that. But so in the later part of the internship, when you do have that base and an understanding of what you're looking for, there's no issues saying, hi, let's say you reach out to the recruiter. So that's one of an individual that's a key individual to contact. So you reach out to a recruiter and say, hi, give your little elevator pitch. You include your resume, and you say, I'm really interested. Do you have any opportunities? And I would recommend doing that after you've applied on the website. So you could say that I've already applied. But by using that method, it could theoretically bring you from 3,000th online to 10th online. And your resume may get looked at. And I've used this hack many times, and sometimes I got a yes, and sometimes I got a no for an interview. But at least I got a response and didn't just wait and have my resume in the no man's land of the abyss that many students face.
So my other question is, and that just kind of goes back to the beginning, you mentioned the kind of the rural versus urban university with regards to internship searching and networking.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear, and we don't have that many high schoolers in the group, but should high schoolers, and for those who are maybe considering going to college at a later age, factor the university location like that into their future like job search? Because we all know like a university like Brown is an Ivy League, and they're located out in the middle of nowhere, I think, southern New York, northern Pennsylvania. But somebody who maybe goes to City University of New York, for example, I don't know if that exists or not, has that better chance of going to networking events in a Manhattan or Brooklyn or Queens. Should somebody weigh those options, or does that not really matter because academic quality is important?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's something you need to factor. The reality is, if you go to Brown and that's on your resume, that will do you wonders. I mean, that's the reality. Yeah.
Princeton's located in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, but it gets people into everywhere.
So if you get into a great school, why not go for it? I mean, and then you have the alumni base, and the academics are excellent. The professors are excellent.
Hmm.
But it's definitely a factor to take a look
Mhm.
at rural versus city life. Um,
Mhm.
and then, yeah, so I think it really depends on a case by case basis. But the
Right.
reality is, if you are in a city, there are many talented professionals that you could
Mhm.
theoretically meet for coffee. And
Yep.
in reality, meeting someone for coffee versus speaking over the phone is more powerful. It may not happen the first time, but they'll remember you if you have coffee with them.
Great. Great. So going back to networking events, I know we had talked a little bit about connecting with employers and networking. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on both internship fairs and finding events on and off campus to go and network at. So internship fairs, obviously, they're fairs that dedicated specifically to finding internships.
Yeah,
And then obviously like the tools that you're using to find those events. Do
yeah,
you have any suggestions specifically for interns, or are they basically everything else that everybody else uses?
yeah. So the first would be going to your university's fairs. So
Mhm.
the value of going to a Princeton or just even a so let's take New Brunswick,
Mhm.
um, a Rutgers.
Mhm.
So let's say Rutgers, J&J recruits from Rutgers. So when you
Mhm.
apply for Rutgers, I think it's important to understand who recruits from those universities. However,
Mhm.
it could always change by the time you're a junior. Those
Yeah.
shift.
Mhm.
Um,
And I know for the West Coasters who are in this group, I think the generally we have more West Coasters. I think that
yeah,
same can be applied that if you want to work at a Facebook,
yeah,
generally they hit up like Stanford and UC
exactly,
Berkeley first. And so
exactly.
understanding those behaviors, Cisco hits up Santa Clara University a lot.
Hmm.
And so if you know you're that impacted university, then that works out really well.
Exactly. So definitely go to your career fairs,
Hmm.
whether it's so for internships. And at those fairs, it's important to understand who's going to be at those
Hmm.
fairs. Make sure your elevator pitch is great. Make sure your resume is up to date. And I mean, we could, in terms of the resume, I let the university take care of that. I mean,
Right.
they have great counselors at universities that's what they
Hmm.
specialize. That's one aspect that they specialize in. But so yes, you could go to the fairs, and then after you meet individuals from the career fair, employers, you should send
Hmm.
them an email after thanking them. I see so many students that don't do that, and these
Mm.
small little like nice greetings
Yep.
um, can make all the difference. I mean, I've helped a bunch of students
Right.
and just kind of just understanding what they're currently doing. And then I'll
Hmm.
give them some feedback to try something else or try something that I haven't even done. After we speak for 30 minutes or an hour, I really appreciate an email thanking me and then also keeping in touch. And
Sure.
that's something that students don't always think about, which is totally valid. But I
Hmm.
think that's something that's not taught in school.
Hmm. And
So
why isn't it taught, and why don't more students learn how to say the thank yous and may I have another's, you know?
I really don't know. I
Mhm.
think universities are focusing more on let's get your resume fantastic resume, fantastic cover letter, and let's focus on bringing employers to your school.
Mhm.
Um, I mean,
And I mean,
oftentimes,
you and I both, I think we work at employers now, and we talk to a lot of folks in this recruiting space. And
yeah.
every time I talk to any of them, it's like this whole like, oh, we hired that person because they sent a thank you
Oh
follow
my,
up, and that
it
was a
makes such a
differentiator.
difference. Yeah,
And it's just
exactly.
amazing that way. Yeah.
And I would recommend doing it within 24 hours.
Wow. Okay.
So I
Okay.
think it's really important, and it's such a small thing that can make all
Mhm.
the difference. All the difference, and I think that's even outside the internship. If someone helps you in any regard, a nice
Mhm.
text or an email can make all the difference.
I agree. I agree. It totally means a lot. So my other question for you at this point now is, while you're still looking for the internship, I know that a lot of the students, we actually have 20 people on this webinar now, which is pretty amazing, are probably thinking between unpaid, paid, and course credit type internships. And I
Yep.
want you to actually talk a little bit about specifically about those unpaid internships, because we've seen a lot of news lately in the last couple of years about the ethics of unpaid internships.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you could, yeah, just cover up on all three and answer. And if those of you who have any questions on that, feel free to enter them in the comments section. And for those of you who are just joining again, I wanted to remind you that this is Zach Schleien. We're talking about his latest book, Hacking the Internship Process, which is available on Amazon tonight and through, I believe, next Tuesday for $2.99. And Zach is he's an entrepreneur. He's also the graduate of Syracuse University in both undergraduate and graduate degrees. And he's taken some time out of his night. I know it's late over there on the East Coast at just past 10 p.m. to talk about what the internship process is and how all of you who are watching can master this process and stand above your peers.
So, yeah, and again, thanks for having me again. So just to get back to your question, so this area, again, I don't think is so black and white. I think it really depends on your socioeconomic status. Can you afford not being paid? And again, I believe there are laws, it may be state by state, and I'm not well versed in this, and I can definitely get better in terms of payment. I believe if you're working a certain amount of hours, you have to be paid. But again, I don't want to say you should or should not. I think if the opportunity presents itself and you're able to live at home with your parents, theoretically, and you don't need the paycheck, go for it. However, if you need the paycheck, whether you're living at home with your parents or not, I mean, then not having a paid internship is not an option. So it's very important and that's okay to communicate as well during the interview, just setting your expectations. Maybe not necessarily on the first one. I know on oftentimes first interviews when you talk about pay for students, like first, then they kind of back away. But maybe when you're getting a little bit more serious. But that's another reason why I feel it's so important to continuously network, even if you're like, okay, I'm definitely getting at this internship, or like definitely someone's going to help me out. You shouldn't always put all your eggs in one basket. So because that interview may not work out, that internship may not work out, you may not get it. But again, it is all you need is one, but that one may not necessarily be one that's paying. And I think, again, if you have two or three, great. Then you have options, and then you can start looking at the pros and cons of each.
And I remember, like, in one of my own experiences, I was interning in Hong Kong, actually, through the Syracuse program, all the way back in 2008. And they didn't pay me, but I asked for a transportation stipend, and they gave me that. So
that's great.
I think there's a lot of different flexibilities for what you can be given. And maybe even you go to an internship, and when you're done with the 6 weeks or 3 months, they just give it all to you in, like, one big, gigantic check.
Yeah. And I've seen, and you touched upon this in terms of credit. I mean, that's another great opportunity. Again, if you need to start, if you want to start work as soon as possible, so that depends, again, on every person's situation. Maybe financially you need the money. So taking, having an internship that fulfills course credit kills two birds with one stone, then you could theoretically graduate early as well. And then start making a salary before most of the students in your class. So I think there's so many factors that you have to weigh, and it's different for each student.
Okay. And before we get off this topic, do you also have any advice on students who are receiving an internship offer? I don't know if internship offers come with things like health benefits or any of those kinds of things, but I was wondering if you could speak to that really quickly before we talked about being actually at the internship.
So this is mentioned in the book as well. A website, glassdoor.com, amazing resource to have an understanding. It may sometimes be a little general, but you have an understanding of the rating of the company based off of the employees. So
Mm-hmm.
again, if you get one internship, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you probably 9 times out of 10 you'll take it.
Yeah.
But if you have 3 offers, you can start evaluating them based off their Glassdoor rating. You can start evaluating it based off the salary you're making, based
Mm-hmm.
off of a small or large company, the
Mm-hmm.
role you're going to be in, the growth opportunities. So there are a number of factors. And I think it's very important to kind of have an understanding of where it could lead you
Mm-hmm.
in terms of your career past the internship as well.
Mm-hmm. Great, great, cool. So let's see. Rohan has 2 more questions, and they're actually related to your book
Yeah,
and expectations for your sellers. So let's post those 2 actually, and you can go ahead and answer them right now.
yeah.
So Rohan asks, do you have anything on your mind as a next big idea that you would think about writing in your next book? You
Thanks,
want to write
Rob.
about protein muffins, I guess?
Well, I think so. Before thinking about another book, it's um, this book specifically. It helps students find an internship of their dreams, and it's to have an understanding whether you're an international student or a domestic student to get through that process. So I
Hmm.
think it's to educate students is my number one goal.
Sure.
So the book is out, and we're going to be pushing out content in the future. So we have a blog section on our website. So continuous education is extremely important, and giving value, whether you buy the book or not, but to give value to our readers. So that's one area that I would like to focus in
And while
on.
we're here, can
Yeah,
you give us your website so I can put it up here for
yeah.
a quick moment?
Let me send that to you.
Sure.
So it's theworkbookseries.com.
Okay.
And
The
then if you
workbook.
series.com. So hacking the internship process, it's part of the workbook series.
Hmm.
The workbook, it was written by Bill Hobbs, and Bill Hobbs is my co-author for hacking the internship process. So the goal I know Bill's goal is to create this educational content for students in all different areas of life. So from beginning to end, and giving resources that provide value. So hacking an internship is one
Hmm.
part of a student's career. So they're on the website about the book, or as well as buying the book, both
Mm.
on the website.
And
And
then
then we have a
Rohan's
blog
next.
section. Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Rohan has a 3rd question. Let's just
Yeah.
see what that says. He says, we certainly hope this book should hit bestseller. Then what are your expectations for all of your readers?
Yeah. It's most important to me.
Hmm.
And I love it when students email me and say, wow, your advice, less advice, but more method
Hmm.
was so beneficial, and it helped me land an internship. So nothing would make me happier than the goal of students landing internships, specifically internships that are their dream internships. So that's
Hmm.
really important to me. So I wanted to write the best book possible and to provide students with the most resources possible in the most easy and digestible way.
Hmm.
So that's kind of, I guess, my hope is if you land an internship, yeah, you could message me on LinkedIn or Twitter, which are both on the website. And just sharing. There's so many students that have challenges, and especially right now, the book, I wanted the price to be extremely low so anyone can afford it, or most people can afford it. It's $2.99. So I guess my hope would be that other students read this book and other students
Hmm.
share it with their peers and share with their professors. So it just is a resource that's shared throughout. And I don't believe there are any books that bring you through the process and talk
Hmm.
about the technologies and how to network as a student.
Right.
So, and just to be able to relate with students is so, so important. And it's not someone, and that was kind of why it's really special with Bill and I. And Bill Hobbs. He runs sales at a company called Tango. He's really extremely talented, and he's coming from the professional side, and I'm coming from the student side. So it's a really really unique perspectives to try to give you the most value possible.
Awesome. David Delaney asks a question, and I'll just go ahead and put this up. And he says, most of the time, at least in California, it is extremely rare to get a paid internship that also fulfills course credit. It's also unheard of, at least in Northern California. Don't go in with expectations. Go in with one or the other. I guess not so much a question as much as just a statement.
Yeah.
You have
So
any
yeah,
thoughts
I
on
think
that?
that's important to consider. So whether you want to go, okay, I'm going to go for the paid route, or I'm going to go for course credit. And I think every person's situation is different. And one of those factors is just the resources you have financially and whether you can go about it.
Awesome. And then he also asks an actual question. For internship, is it possible to get one without being a student? What if one chooses to pursue a career change and wants to gain useful experience in a new field?
Yeah, definitely. It's less common because as an adult who has worked in industry potentially and making a major shift to have an internship that's unpaid, maybe your ego, you don't want to go for it. So that's why you've seen a lot of individuals go back to these online, or whether it's online academies or these boot camps for example, computer science, because they're shifting careers. So I guess you're actually paying for more education. So that's one route. I don't know anyone specifically that went back for an internship, any of like my colleagues, but I know that it can be done. And I know they can't discriminate based off of age. That's federal law.
That's really good to know. Cool. So for those of you who are just joining, I know there are 13 of you here. If you're interested in asking any other questions, please put them in the comments section and we'll address them as we move from one section to another. Once again, we have Zach Schleien, who's on here. He's co-author of Hacking the Internship Process, and he is actually on East Coast time. So it's literally 10:12 p.m. over there, and he's taken time out of his day to talk to us about internships. And you can get his book. It's the pinned comment on the video here, and it's $2.99 for a limited time only. So if you're interested in getting to know more about how to make the most of your internship process, I encourage you to take a look. And if you have any comments or any thoughts on there, I'm sure Zach will be more than happy to field any comments or questions on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter for everything. So I wanted to actually jump into the next section of this now. So we've talked a little bit about hunting for the internship and networking and going to the right events. And I think we're really now in the exciting part where you're finally at the internship and, you know, you're there and you're on your first day of that internship. And so what should everybody be thinking about once they walk into, you know, the sliding doors or however big that door is into that internship? What should be on their mind as they go in there?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. One is just getting an understanding of the company, the organization as a whole, and just trying to absorb it. You may not necessarily have to, I would recommend, especially as an intern, you don't have to say, oh, my way, I've done this before. Just understand how the company operates. And I think that's extremely important. Just absorbing and trying to learn as much as possible and trying to meet as many people as possible and pick their brains and ask them questions. But again, when you say ask questions, have well thought out questions.
Sure, absolutely.
So going back to our previous, earlier in the evening, previous conversation is like, if a student came up to me and said, hi, I need help with an internship, or finding an internship, I would say, great. What have you done? And if they say nothing, I'll say, so you want me to do it for you? I mean, it's like, so I think that's important, and it's very important to bring value to every conversation. And so that your peers that you're working with are extremely busy, but they would always, I don't want to say always, depending on the individual and the company, but your hope would be that they'd be willing to help. So if you
Right.
come in with a well thought out question, or maybe something that you just want to learn more of, and you've done some research, but you're going to the individual, I think that's a great way to approach a new
Mm-hmm.
intern.
And so I think that internship job descriptions are fairly thought out and fairly carefully crafted. But what if you're at this internship and you end up fetching coffee and getting donuts and getting
Yeah.
pizza? How
Well,
does that how does that work?
yeah, I think Bill Hobbs would be
Hmm.
better at answering these questions from the
Sure.
employer side. Fortunately, I've never had that where I
Hmm.
had to just get coffee and donuts. And that's like the story that you always hear,
Yeah.
the scary story.
Yeah.
And it definitely happens.
Hmm.
But again, especially if you're being paid, and I mean, if you're not being paid and you're just getting coffee and donuts and you're like, this is literally a waste of my time, I can be starting a blog that will provide more value to my future or continue networking, then you have to make that decision. And that's
Hmm.
not for me to make,
Totally.
that's for you to make. However, if you're being paid and you really do need the money
Hmm.
or the college credit and you're
Hey,
not doing any,
$12 to go fetch donuts doesn't seem like that
yeah,
bad of a
so,
gig.
yeah, so I think like,
But I
exactly.
wouldn't I think you need to
Yeah,
get value out of it too,
no,
gain that skill set and have that
100%.
office experience. I know
Yeah.
even though it seems so, how would I say it? It seems so trivial. For some of these early or entry level jobs, you literally walk in and they'll ask you like, "Have you ever worked in an office before?" Yeah, great, you're hired. And so I always find that to be interesting.
So one thing that I also see is you may start with doing very small, tedious tasks.
Sure.
However, if you do an awesome job at the small, tedious tasks, which I think is an important mindset to bring to just life in general, just take it like head on and
Hmm.
put in your best of your ability. You could always ask for more. You could say, hi, I've been doing X, Y, and Z. Is there anything I can help you with? And then guess what? Your manager may say, actually, there is. Like, I see you're doing a great job
Hmm.
and you have a lot of time on your hands. So let me give you this task. So I think, and again, like, if you have nothing to do and you're just sitting in your office and you've asked and they say, well, if something comes up, da, 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 you can always like take the
Hmm.
initiative and do a training online. Again, there are so many free courses, YouTube videos.
Are we still
Um,
live here?
yes, I'm live, and
Oh
it is
shoot.
live. It says green. Albert, you there? We're live. 1 minute for technical difficulties. I'll,
I think one of us might be frozen over here. I'm not sure. Um, hold
let
on
me.
here. Hold on, hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, okay. So looks good on your end.
Yeah,
Okay.
everything looks good. It's yep. Mute. You're mute, Albert. can't hear you. Can you speak, Albert?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, all right. That was funny. All right, we're back. We are back. That was, I guess, a commercial break, if you will. We'll find a way to fill
For
that
the
in.
for the sponsors. For the sponsors.
For the sponsors, yeah, for the sponsors. So I think we were talking about pizza and getting donuts and adding
Yeah.
value, and
Yeah.
just how I think we need to be able to do that in order to slowly move up. And so I know that as internship holders and folks of that sort, how do we know that is the right time to ask for more work? Because sometimes we think that maybe as students we're great and we're ready for that
Yeah.
more work. And then the manager gives us that side eye look and is like, what do you mean? Like, you still haven't mastered that
Yeah.
task yet.
Yeah. I
You know?
think I think again, this is a situation that is different for every individual, and you kind of just have to build that understanding. But I think it's also very important to find someone in your company that can kind of be a trusted colleague, so you could
Hmm.
ask them, "Hey, Mike," or let's say Jane. So I've done a lot. I think I want to do more work, but I also don't want to come off as like a certain way.
Sure.
So you kind of just, I think it's important to build relationships in your company, and you
Hmm.
could use them as a sounding post, and you can ask them for advice. They may have been in the company for a few years, so they have a better understanding of what works and what doesn't at this
Hmm.
company. So I've experienced that in roles that I've had where I may have wanted to have more work, but there was really kind of that friction. And it was me having to take the initiative of meeting new people at the company
Hmm.
and communicating with people I was already connected with and asking.
Okay, great. And so, for those of, and so would you have considered that kind of the ability to connect as a way to look at how your internship was successful? And for those, I guess maybe in general, how would you encourage one to evaluate their internship as successful or not successful?
Yeah. I think if you're able to demonstrate a
Hmm.
business value,
Sure.
that can be very successful.
Hmm.
And that's a story or an experience that you can bring to your next internship or to your next employer if it's for a full-time job. And these are things that you could note on your resume. If you've built relationships at this company, it could theoretically turn into a full-time role.
Hmm.
Interns often start with one company. I saw it during my master's program. We had a lot of students that were at companies, and then they shifted to full-time. So, and I
And
think,
let talk about that a little bit, because I've always wondered how, because I never did this as a student myself, how one converts from being an intern to that FTE designation, which just seems so coveted, especially when you're that student and um, you know that you have a job and it's like 9 months before you even
yeah,
graduate, and you
yeah,
start thinking, oh yeah, maybe I can start smooth sailing.
yeah. I think again, Bill would be able to talk about this more as coming from the employer side. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, if I think I know at least students that I went to school with who started an internship, they have reviews, and then you kind of have an understanding of whether you're going to be full time or not. You may have another interview a little later
Hmm.
once you're back in school, and then you'll find out. And then, yeah, if you're fortunate enough to get that offer and you take it, um, the expectation is that you will go with that company.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. And so let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the flip side of the internship process. So let's say you go into an internship and you don't do a very good job,
Yeah,
and you get wheeled into HR, and they tell you one day that, we know that you're 3 months into this 6-month internship, but unfortunately it's not working out and we got to let you go. And I think these things are a lot different than what you see at, say, a normal like day job that's 9 to 5. How does the student handle that?
Yeah. Um, so fortunately, that's never happened to
Hmm.
me. But as a student, if that did, um, I mean, it would be pretty devastating potentially,
Yeah.
unless you were ready and you're like, I don't want to be here, and
Hmm.
it hasn't fulfilled me in terms of new experiences and learning. So I think
Hmm.
again, it's dependent. It's different for every single person. But if unfortunately, if that happened to you and you were devastated, I mean, the only thing is just to continue and try to have an understanding of what you could have done differently,
Hmm.
whether it's you or the employer, but trying to really have an understanding, take responsibility, um, and try to have an understanding of what you could have done differently and where you could improve, or maybe that role just isn't right for you. And your next internship, you could potentially shift focuses. So I think it varies student to student.
Hmm. Okay. And the other aspect I think is while you're still at that internship, how would you also incorporate yourself into company culture? We know that a lot of companies are pretty fun these days because knowing what
Yeah.
millennials and Gen Z want, they do things like happy hours, days out at the
Yeah.
park, things of that sort, volunteer days. And so, how would you incorporate yourself into that kind of experience to make the
Yeah.
most out of
So I guess
it?
I'll just talk about my
Sure.
internships. The most important thing to me was establish relationships.
Hmm.
Work really hard, think outside the box, but also establish great relationships. And I think that naturally, once you have those relationships with your colleagues, you start getting the culture because you're friends with them, and you could theoretically, whether you're of age to drink, you could go out with them. If you're not, there's probably events anyway, regardless.
Hmm.
So I think it's just building those relationships and doing really well in your work and being recognized. And if you have the personality of wanting to stand out, go for that.
Cool. And so I think the final thing I want to talk about before we head up to the top of the bottom of the hour here, rather the top of the hour for those who joined at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, is I know there's a really great section in your book that talks about tools for your internship
Yeah.
search. And I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit for our
Yeah.
watchers today.
Yeah. So in our book, how we set it up was we listed the tools in the very beginning. These
Hmm.
are the tools that we recommend that you download. And there are tools that are similar,
Hmm.
but these are recommendations. And in the very back of the book, we go into detail of each tool. But
Yeah.
during the hacks, where we discuss the hacks, and this book doesn't have to be read cover to cover, it's more
Hmm.
of a method. So maybe you prefer one hack over another.
Hmm.
You don't have to do all 12 or 13 hacks.
Hmm.
You could try them and see which work and which don't for you. Um, but the tools are a way that incorporate into the hacks to make your life easier. So that was, I think, the unique perspective that I bring is being so young. Now I'm in IT. I work for
Hmm.
Johnson & Johnson in IT. I have a strong understanding of IT and technology and tools to enable your life and make your life more efficient. So I brought those tools to the forefront to make your internship more efficient in terms
Hmm.
of finding the dream internship and getting to the front of the line. So we
Hmm.
incorporate these tools inside of our hacks.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
And so these tools that you're talking about are all found within the pages of your book, and
Yeah, and
you don't
they're
even have to read the
free.
book from beginning to end. You can start from the end
Yeah,
and go read
exactly.
them from the
Yeah,
front,
so
right?
we just list the resources pretty much in the beginning, and at the end we go into detail of each of the tools. But
Hmm.
most of the tools are free.
Hmm.
A few of them also have like a freemium option.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Great, awesome. So we're actually getting towards the end of this webinar today. I think we've had a lot of viewers so far, and once again, I want to thank you for coming on and
Thank
sharing
you.
this great resource. For those of you who are watching, you can find the link of the book in the pinned comment on the video here. And Zach's book is available today on Amazon for $2.99 for a very limited time, so it's available for everyone. And I don't think there are any additional questions, but I think before we conclude this webinar, I just wanted to ask you real quickly, do you have any final thoughts for those who are, getting into the internship hunt?
Yeah.
And do you have anything, I'd like you to go ahead and promote how people can get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with these resources of yours,
Yeah.
and anything else that you'd like the crowd to know today.
Yeah. So a question that I really love that I like to ask during my internship process,
Mm-hmm.
during the interview process is there anything you wish you knew
Mm-hmm.
that you do now, but you didn't know when you first started? And I think it's very important um, to start the process early. Because the last thing you want to do is start late and you come off as very needy for an internship. To start early, that's important. And try to really understand the opportunities out there,
Mm-hmm.
connect with people and build real relationships, not transactional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Keep them updated along the way and just be respectful throughout and listen. And I think if you got those few thoughts, you don't need to read the book. No, I'm joking. But essentially, like, that is kind of the recipe. But the book lays it out for you in terms of resources, tools, apps, and hacks to land that dream internship. And that's something that's not necessarily taught in school. It's not taught in other books. It's not taught in blogs. And this book was created I went to school, undergrad, my master's at Syracuse. Bill has many years of experience. He runs sales at a major company. So our two perspectives together, I think, we made a great book that is really digestible and something that any student can read and then put into action. And that's the most important thing. It's not just read cover to cover. Great. Very informed. It's great. How can I bring this into my life and see if it works or not?
And that's a great way to do it, I think. You want to have the books that tell you and show you instead of just like talk to you and that's it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I would love if you can just share. So I guess to my audience, if you could give me your thoughts, if you have experiences that use the hacks and successes, or if you have questions when you've used the hacks and tried them, feel free to tweet at me or add me on LinkedIn, or you could even email me. I could give my email. It's Z, then my last name at gmail.com. I'll try to get to as many questions as possible if you guys email me. But I'll try my best. And bring questions if you have questions that are well thought out. And I think it's go in with an open mind and take action. Don't be in the stands. You have to get onto the court. And it may be uncomfortable at first. If you could try it and then you still don't like it and it doesn't work for you, move on to another hack. And that's the beauty.
The internship hunting is a contact sport. Literally,
100. You will get no so many times. And it's a great skill to learn. So be okay with no.
Okay. I think that's important for the folks who are watching this to know. And so, with that said, we're actually a little bit past the bottom of the hour. Do you have any ultimate final thoughts for anyone who's watching the video and, ultimate words of inspiration or motivation that you'd like to offer before we conclude?
Yeah, I think just keep putting yourself out there. Keep looking to develop yourself and build real quality relationships.
Great. So with that said,
know the no.
Know the no. I'm going to like that right now. Yeah. So, okay, awesome. I think that's some great advice. And so, once again, for those of you who are on the call, this is Zach Schleien. He's the author of Hacking the Internship Process. I've posted it up on our pinned comment here, and I know promoted it heavily. And so, because Zach's a good friend of mine and I want him to do well with his book, but also, I think even more importantly, because here in Albert's List, we're trying to give you value every single day,
Yeah.
especially for the students out there who may feel like they've been left in the dark because they're not really sure what it is that their university wants them to learn outside of the classroom. This book is for you. I've read it a little bit, and I really like what I have to read. And so, once again, if you have any questions, reach out to Zach. He's here on Facebook. You can find him on Twitter, find him on LinkedIn, everywhere where there's a social network. He's probably at. And so, with that said, I want to thank all of you here for watching again, and good luck to all of you on your internship process. And we'll see you back here next week as we talk to Stella. Actually, she wrote a book too about find your peanut butter, finding the career that sticks, and figuring out how your career and your relationship love life are actually similar. So we'll see you nearly the same time here next week at 6 o'clock. Once again, Zach, thank you for coming on,
Thank you.
and
And thank you for everyone that
sharing all of your value to everyone here who has stopped by to listen. And so,
appreciate it.
best wishes on your book sales and best wishes on spreading the message of internship hunting.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too. Bye.